r/ask Reddit. What's a let that sink in fun fact? It took humanity approximately 4 times longer to switch from copper swords to steel swords than it took to switch from steel swords to nuclear bombs. Imagine you're a vampire. You go to sleep in the early 1700s. Muskets and shit. You wake up in 1945, and humans have the ability to wipe an entire city off the map in an instant. Time to nerd out hard. This is a major theme in the role-playing game Vampire the Masquerade. If you're playing an older character, the idea that you were once an immortal, godlike being that now has to contend with food that can kill you. Gwen Stefani is older than Ted Cruz. Didn't believe this. Googled, it's true. That shit is bananas. BANOS. When NASA pitched the idea of the Voyager missions to Richard Nixon with the idea of touring the outer planets, he was told that the last time it was possible, Thomas Jefferson was in the White House. The particular planetary alignment that Voyager 2 used on its journey occurs only once every 176 years. Jefferson really dropped the ball. That was apparently literally what the guy proposing it said to Nixon. Mr. President, the last time this was possible Thomas Jefferson was sitting where you are, and he really dropped the ball. Nixon laughed and, partially, approved the mission. Your bones are wet. I now feel weird. Now all I can think about is my bones slipping and sliding around under my muscles. I don't like it. If the sun was scaled down to the size of a white blood cell, the Milky Way galaxy would be the size of the continental United States. The vastness of space is mind-boggling. If the moon were 1 pixel hip, Joshworth, comdev pixel space solar system, HTML. Next to the US Army, Disney World is the largest buyer and importer of explosives in the USA. I was wondering what Mickey needed nukes for before I remembered fireworks exist. We are closer to the year 2040 than the year of 1994. No. Yeah, but we get flying cars finally. Edit. No, I don't mean planes. I can't fly a plane without years of training and practice. A flying car in the other hand. The Titanic had 2 sister ships, the Britannic and the Olympic. There was a woman called Violet Jessup, a nurse and a cruise liner stewardess that worked on all 3. The Olympic crashed into a warship whilst leaving harbor but was able to make it back. She was on the Titanic as it sank and is referenced in the Titanic film. A stewardess that was told to set an example to the non-English speaking passengers as the ship sank. She looked after a baby on lifeboat 16 until being rescued by the Carpathia the next day. It's not known what exactly caused the sinking of the Britannic, but the lifeboats hit the water too early. As the ship sank, the reel stood up and a number of the lifeboats were sucked into the propellers. Violet had to jump out of the lifeboat she was in and sustained a serious head injury, but survived. She was on board for all 3 incidents in the space of 5 years. She went back to continue to work at sea for another 30 years before retiring in 1950. She died of heart failure in 71. Edit. Thank you for the gold. Here's her wiki. https://en Wikipedia.org wiki Violet Jessup as well. Her 3 little sink-in facts. What a badass. Her portrait should be associated with the phrase getting back on the horse. If you live in the USA, you have better odds of dating Taylor Swift than dying of bird flu and Ebola combined. Don't try to scare us. Seriously, I'm not trying to hear a hit song about how boring of a boyfriend I am. In the span of the last 3 Star Wars movies, the Cleveland Browns have won 1 game. Why you gotta do my Browns like that? There was a time in history when trees existed but the fungi which causes wood to rot had not yet evolved to digest wood. Dead trees and plants would pile up and the 35% oxygen atmosphere caused massive fires. This is also the time where petrified wood came from. Trees would sit in mud for thousands of years and not rot while minerals slowly replace the wood structures. Fires in 35% oxygen, and wood everywhere. I'd be ducking petrified too. The man who invented the frisbee was cremated and turned into a frisbee. Okay, but how? My son was cremated and there's no way I could turn his ashes into a frisbee. Would probably have been mixed with the melted plastic. Side note, my sons were also cremated. Duck 2017. And we keep their ashes in a teddy bear so we can cuddle them whenever we want. Edit. Holy crap. I posted this as I was going to bed last night intending for the OP to see it. I woke up to 8k upvotes and a full inbox. Thanks for the kind words. And thanks to the people who have given me gold. I have tried to reply to everyone individually, but sorry if I missed anyone. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr. were born in the same year. Queen Elizabeth and Marilyn Monroe were born a month apart. I find it hard to believe Marilyn Monroe was born in 1533. Scientists who work with cockroaches often develop allergies towards cockroaches. At the same time, they also develop allergies to pre-ground coffee. Also heard that people that get bit by cockroaches often develop allergies for both cockroaches and shellfish. Heard of a guy in my city who bred roaches for reptile food. He was going to clean out one of the empty terrariums. He opened the hinged plastic lid too hastily and a cloud of roach poop dust hit him in the face. Without any previous allergy he still instantly fainted from anaphylactic shock. Goddamned most disgusting animal on earth. Oh, and there are apparently 4,500 species of cockroach, of which only 30 are considered pests. Okay, I'm freaking myself out and my skin is itching just thinking about this. I'm leaving this thread now. Yep, best to stop thinking about things like that gap under your fridge you've been ignoring for years, or what's in all that dust under your bed. Stegosaurus lived 150 million years ago. T-Rex lived 65 million years ago. Stegosaurus was more ancient to the T-Rex than the T-Rex is to us. Edit. Decided to provide scientifically accurate illustration. There's another one similar to that. The Egyptians were a force in 2000 BCE. The Romans were in power at around 0 CE. The Egyptians are as old to Romans as the Romans are to us. Egyptians are very fun to consider. When the Romans were in power, the pyramids of the Egyptians were already 500 years old, more ancient to them than the ancient Egyptians are to us today, and they didn't have pictures nor internet. Even more than staggering, the Sphinx actually shows signs of possible water erosion. This would put its creation at 6th millennium BCE. In the USA more soldiers die from suicide than in combat. Edit. Warshall Philip and misread it. This is seriously sad and a major problem. Edit. Reddit. I'm all for dark humor and don't offend easily, but the comment about them dying in combat more is not where I was getting at. My point being that we send these men over there, condition them to be killers, and expect them to assimilate back into society without help. I get there are help groups, but that's mostly volunteer and not enough support from our government. That's all I was hinting at. The Great Pyramid was built before the last woolly mammoth died. Vending machines have killed more people than sharks. Why would vending machines go around killing sharks? The vending machine is the shark's only known predator. They have a long and bloody history. Pineapples take 2 years to grow. Edit. Wow. Thanks for all the upvotes. Can confirm. Only 1 year to go since I planted some pineapple heads in my yard for no particular reason. Edit. Why the hell is this my most upvoted comment? You can place all the planets of our solar system between Earth and Moon and even have a bit of spare space after. 10 out of 10 scientists all agree that this is a bad idea and should not be attempted. It's like the 10th time I read this, but I'm still mindblown by this fact. The US federal government classifies cocaine as a less serious, more useful drug than marijuana. We keep cocaine nose sprays in the ER for uncontrollable nosebleeds. It's also very good for tooth pain for patients who for some reason cannot take opioids. When humans started farming, blue eyes in humans hadn't evolved yet. Evolved mutated, yeah, beautiful freaks. Every person with blue eyes has one common ancestor. The cigarette lighter was actually invented before the match. And before the cigarette. Dozens of Americans die every day from slipping in the shower and hitting their heads. Dozens. I tell you, it's one of the primary leading causes of non-medical deaths in the USA. This makes me appreciate the lime buildup in my tub from decades of hard water. It won't go away, but my crusty tub is never slippery. That's why you gotta sit in the shower and enjoy relaxation of not going to die. Betty White is older than sliced bread. Betty White, born the 17th of January, 1922. Sliced bread was first sold in 1928, advertised as the greatest forward step in the baking industry since bread was wrapped. So you mean to tell me the saying used to be greatest thing since wrapped bread? There is, on average, a supernova explosion every 50 years in the Milky Way. On average, there are 30 every second in the observable universe. This one is probably the best. Let that sink in fact here. Let me just repeat that. Do you know how big the universe must be if it's 30 every second while taking 50 years in our galaxy? After hitting the iceberg, it took 2 hours and 40 minutes for the Titanic to fully submerge underwater. Let that sink in. Looking at this post makes me think about the fact that it's a lot of time. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that it took people a while to realize how significant it was, and that getting off of a huge ocean liner would take so much time. It is a lot of time. And that's also part of the reason so many lifeboats left half empty. For the first hour or so, a lot of passengers didn't actually believe Titanic was sinking, and they thought they were safer on the bigger ship than on flimsy open lifeboats in the middle of the Atlantic. So a lot of lifeboats were launched with space left over, simply because there was nobody waiting to get into them. It's also worth knowing that no ship before or since Titanic has survived for so long with such a degree of damage. She was insanely over-engineered, and there are no passenger ships even today are built to withstand collisions of that magnitude. There are more chickens in America than people on the planet. The US Navy has the second largest air force in the world. The US Army has the third. The UK Dyslexia Association is situated in Reading, edit, Reading, Berkshire, UK, not the Pennsylvania one, edit 2, the Reading postcode area. Pronounced Reading to those unaware, edit, yes, it's like the one in Pennsylvania, and anywhere else that has the same name. PLS stop now. Also pronounced Reading to those who are aware. In 2008, the subreddit rjailbait was voted subreddit of the year in a Best of Reddit poll. Reddit sure has come a long way. At one point it was the first search term listed when searching for Reddit on Google, and it was only banned when the news media ran stories on it. It existed comfortably for years. Here's the explanation from the Reddit CEO who took over soon after its banning. I wonder what today's would be. Neutron stars have such strong gravity that if you dropped a marshmallow into one, it would be like dropping a 3 megaton nuclear warhead on Earth. Also, if you add mass to a neutron star, the volume of the star shrinks. Gary Newman is older than Gary Oldman by a little under 2 weeks. What's new is old and what's old is new. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush and Donald Trump were all born within a 66-day stretch. China used more concrete in 3 years than the US used in the entire 20th century. https://www.forbes.com cites Nyamkathi the 5th of December 2014. China used more concrete in 3 years than the US used in the entire 20th century. Infographic number 779 at 10c 4131. Macaulay Culkin is now older than Catherine O'Hara was when she played his mom in Home Alone. Mark Hamill in The Force Awakens is the same age that Alec Guinness was in A New Hope. If you have clean water and temperature control, you are better off than half the population. I have half of those things. It's ducking 60 degrees, Dad. I am turning up the heat. Edit. My outfit is carefully curated. I can't just put on a sweater. You don't understand anything. Ugh. The first electric car was invented at the end of the 19th century and it went 65 miles per hour. Because early gas engines had very low torque, some of the earliest cars were gas electric. Sharks are older than trees. Edit. Okay, sharks predate trees. The oldest shark fossils we know of are 450 million years old. The oldest known tree is Wurtisa, about 385 million years old. Adwaita, the longest living animal ever, was a giant tortoise given to Clive of India. He was born around 1750 and died in 2006. He existed longer than the United States has. There are more tigers privately owned in Texas than tigers in the wild. Edit. Wording. Your computer is much more likely of contracting a virus by surfing legitimate church sites than by surfing porn sites. Porn sites generally have experts combating viral stuff, while church sites are maintained by lower tech volunteers, as a rule. Corollary: if you're putting up a website for a church or other small volunteer organization, if you're not interested in doing technical maintenance on it, like replacing that old PHPBB installation, you're better off not doing it yourself on a web server in the office closet, nor some random hosting service. Put it on Google Sites or another turnkey service that handles technical details such as login security for you. The overall goal in golf is to play less golf. This is analogous to my approach at my job. The Holy Roman Empire existed until 30 years after the United States was founded, 1776 to 1806. The Oxford University is actually older than the Aztecs. Interesting. The University of Oxford, informally Oxford University or simply Oxford, is a collegiate research university located in Oxford, England. It has no known date of foundation, but there is evidence of teaching as far back as 1096, making it the oldest university in the English-speaking world and the world's second oldest university in continuous operation. It grew rapidly from 1167 when Henry II banned English students from attending the University of Paris, after disputes between students and Oxford townsfolk in 1209. Some academics fled northeast to Cambridge where they established what became the University of Cambridge. The two ancient universities are frequently jointly referred to as Oxbridge. The Aztec Empire, or the Triple Alliance, began as an alliance of three Nahuatl city-states: Mexico, Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. These three city-states ruled the area in and around the Valley of Mexico from 1428 until the combined forces of the Spanish conquistadores and their native allies under Hernan Cortés defeated them in 1521. The moon orbits us from the west to the east, but we see it move across the sky east to west because of the rate of the Earth's rotation. Our observation is like being in a faster car watching a slower car, heading in the same absolute direction, fall further and further behind us. France was still using the guillotine when the first Star Wars film came out. Edit. Thanks for the upvotes. Over the space of 3 days, an estimated 165 people survived both the Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear bomb attacks. Tsutomu Yamaguchi is one of the more famous ones, who was only 2 miles from ground zero when the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. It hit when he was walking to work on the last day of a work trip. After he heard the drone of a plane, he looked up at it and the sky lit up. He was then plucked from the ground, spun around and tossed into a nearby potato field. Miraculously he survived, despite being covered in burns, soaked in radiation, and with 2 blown eardrums. He spent a night in an air shelter, then took an overnight sleeper train home to Nagasaki to see his family. When he made it to a hospital in Nagasaki, he was so burnt a childhood friend didn't recognize him. Neither did his family. Despite his wounds, he made it to work the next day. He started giving his boss a rundown on what happened, and his boss thought he was crazy. There was no way one bomb could destroy a city. Suddenly, a bright light lit up the room. He panicked and dropped to the floor of the office seconds before the shockwave smashed out the office windows. He had just been hit twice by a nuclear blast in the space of 3 days. At the age of 93, he was given the title Nijau Hibakusha, or twice bombed person. He died the next year. So next time you think you're having a shitty week at work, yeah, this article is a good one on him. To be in the top 1% of Americans in terms of income, you need to rake in about $400, 000 a year, rounded off to $1, 000 a day. Hoo-hoo, I only have $999 to go today. Your body consists of roughly a 1-to-1 ratio of bacterial to human cells. The US dropped 172 bombs last year, 2016. That's almost 72 per day. That's about 3 bombs an hour, every hour. For the entire year, in 2017, the US had already dropped more bombs than that by September. It is unlikely that a person could actually die in quicksand, since most quicksand is only a few inches deep. Edit. Most people who do die in quicksand get stuck in tidal basins and drown when the tide comes in. Source: has been stuck in quicksand to my armpits, but I got out before the tide came in. For a split second I thought, did he get out in time? If you choose not to have children, you are the first person in your direct ancestry all the way back to the first humans related to you to not have children. Edit. Changed bloodline to direct ancestry. Edit 2. Others have informed me that it goes as far back as all organisms since life evolved on Earth. I hadn't thought of that. Actually, you would be the first organism in your line not to reproduce, all the way back to the very first organism 4 billion or so years ago. Great fact. The Teotihuacan pyramids, known to be the most architecturally significant Mesoamerican pyramids, were not built by the Aztecs. The Aztecs found it abandoned, settled there and gave it its name. The origin of its founders are still a mystery. Edit. Apparently there's some recent theories regarding the Teotihuacan pyramids and why it was abandoned before being occupied by the Aztecs. The comments are enlightening. Sorry I'm lazy. Maine is the closest US state to Africa. I bless the Maines down in Africa. Samuel L. Jackson turned 69 this. Edit. Thursday. The majority of the first American settlers only survived the first winter by eating their dead children. The entire continent of South America is east of Florida. In a few days the contents on this thread will be reposted on BuzzFeed and YouTube as top 10 facts you didn't know. Bing Crosby advocated for salmon conservation in the North Atlantic against Denmark's overfishing in the early 1970s. The Danish government banned everything Bing Crosby in Denmark, but because he was so popular there, the Danish people protested the government, making them overturn the Bing Crosby law and even to enact salmon conservation legislation. Bing Crosby single-handedly managed to create a piece of Danish law. Edit. Did not expect this to get so big. Here is my evidence for the unconvinced. In 1971 case, the Committee on the Atlantic Salmon Emergency enlisted the help of celebrities to publicize their efforts to convince the Danes to restrain their salmon fleet. One was Bing Crosby, who was part Danish. An enraged Danish government banned the sale of Crosby's records, only to discover that he was incredibly popular in Denmark. The move backfired and produced an outpouring of public support for both the crooner and the salmon. David R. Montgomery, King of Fish, The 1,000-Year Run of Salmon, open bracket, Cambridge, Westview, 2003, 114. As you get closer to black hole, time goes slower. This means that everything farther away would experience time faster and faster as you get closer and closer to the black hole. A second for you could be a billion years for those outside of it. Thus, if you fell into a black hole and looked outside, you would see the universe die with you. Astronomer here. I always like that the coldest place we know of in the universe is on Earth. Even a dense dust cloud, aka coldest spots we know of, are a few degrees above absolute zero. The coldest temperature there is in laboratories on Earth. However, it's quite common to get a few fractions of a degree above absolute zero for experiments. Ergo, the United States hasn't minted any new Purple Heart medals since World War II. We've been using the stockpile that was prepared in anticipation of a ground invasion of Japan. You don't remember being born or most of the first years of your existence. All you know is one day you just started existing and taking in experience memories. If the Earth was the size of a marble, you would need 7 miles of space to build a scale model of the solar system. Scientists haven't found out a particular brain component responsible for consciousness. There is no physical proof of consciousness. It just is. All that stuff you learn about in history class about civilizations rising up and dying out, about certain groups killing off other groups and taking over their lands, that is still happening right now. The overwhelming majority of hands you've touched have had a dong in them at one point. Snipers are supposed to camp at it, so far too. 1,000 people agree with me. Edit. Make that 4,000 holy crap. Speaking the truth helps. Next year, there will be porn stars who were born in 2000. Fanta started as a Coca-Cola substitute in 1940s Nazi Germany. About 1 million people die every year from mosquito bites. That's 2 700 per day, or 100 every hour. Think about how many must have died since you started reading this prompt. Schizophrenia's hallucinations are shaped by culture. Americans with schizophrenia tend to have more paranoid and harsher voices hallucinations. In India and Africa, people with schizophrenia tend to have more playful and positive voices. Lobsters don't die of old age. Taking into consideration that humanity has only explored a small percentage of the ocean, there could very well be a big duck-eyed lobster just chilling out there. Edit. Apparently the square cube law prevents super huge lobsters, but there are still some pretty big ones out there that we don't really get to see. I saw one on the internet that was 4 feet long, had 2-foot long legs, and weighed 14 pounds. Still pretty cool. Cleopatra was born closer to the moon landing than when the pyramids were built. There was a period of time where 4 distinct species of human lived concurrently. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.